So here at the Barrel, we love giving you guys some knowledge. So what we decided to do is I decided to put out a few little phone calls to a couple of our key little friends that we've formed over the last 4 years, these little partnerships that we've formed, and we've decided to go down and see Tim and Rob at Waubs Harbour and Chappie and Tyler at 7K, and then over to the boys at Spotty Dog. And we've decided to bring you guys along for that little bit of knowledge and to show what goes into bringing the barrel to life.
Sunlight, dearest sunlight, I am calling you across the old room. Sunlight.
So the Barrel Collective is designed around Tasmanian spirits, mainly gin and whiskey. We do also have wine, beer, and a few other little liqueurs and things like that. It's all targeted around supporting the Tasmanian spirits industry. We use those Tassie spirits and make craft cocktails. Take those original style of cocktail recipes and create them into something that's Tasmanian focused.
Open my heart to this world. Sunlight, dearest sunlight, I am calling you across the old room. Sunlight, dearest sunlight, I can find my way out of the womb. Something in me feels like all of me, and we dance all alone. Come on in. Open my heart to this world. Open my heart to this world.
Waubs Harbour, when we first started this whole maritime distillery here in Tasmania, it was all about creating a whiskey that was, quintessential Tasmanian, because Rob, the head distiller here, one of the three founders of Waubs Harbour, was right into whiskey already. He'd come from as being a head distiller at Overeem Distillery, and then on to Lark Distillery as well. So he had that real understanding of how to make good Tasmanian whiskey. But our vision was to do that in a style that was fairly unique in Australia at the time, because no one had really captured that maritime style of creating whiskey here. Some of the greatest whiskies and what we were into around the world were these maritime distilleries of Scotland. These amazing distilleries on Islay, or think of the Taliskers, or some of the old Pulteney's of the world. Beautiful distilleries, really capturing that salinity and environment that's all about the coast. And for Tasmania and Australia, a place that's actually, surrounded by a wild ocean, especially here on the east coast, and especially where we've been able to get hold of here, right on the ocean, we get a lot of that, that salty air, that nice stable climate here. And it's the very character which attracted us so much when we found this old oyster hatchery. So this building for 50 years was an old oyster hatchery. And make these little baby oyster spat, they call it, which then they sell to the oyster farms. But it had closed down, and we knew the area pretty well, and we were on the hunt for something that was super close to the ocean. And when we came across this building, we instantly fell in love. Approached the owners, the company that owned this building, and one thing led to another, and we had it. So we've renovated it up. You'll see today when we walk through that you'll see a lot of the original character of the place. We've tried to keep it fairly old school, but we've We've, you know, polished the floors, we've chopped doors in, we've exposed the old timbers and customised it. And it's worked out really well for a distillery, actually. Whisky effectively is only 3 ingredients, right? You've got water, yeast and barley. It's pretty amazing how much taste you can get out of 3 simple ingredients. Of course, there's 2 other elements. One is the barrel, because you take a lot of goodness out of the barrel, both the oakiness and whatever's been in that barrel before, like a pork cask, say. And then the 5th element is the human element. You know, that's a hugely important part of it. It's the gear you're using. You could even argue that's a 6th element. But one cool thing actually we did here when we set up this distillery, and it was largely based on the fact that we already had infrastructure going into the ocean that sucked up salt water. Because, you know, this was an oyster hatchery, so they had giant tanks here full of salt water, and they had this pump house and the capacity to pump out 20,000 litres of salt water an hour. And we were lucky enough to take over those licenses so we could use this salt water. And today we've turned that into our cooling system. So we still suck up 20,000 litres of salt water an hour, but instead of putting it into tanks and having fish grow in it, we put it through a heat exchange system, and we convert the cold energy out of the ocean into cold fresh water. So we don't pump salt water through our equipment. We convert the energy into fresh water, and the fresh water goes up, and this is what this is right here. This manifold is bringing in this fresh water. The conversion's happening in a heat exchange system outside this building. It goes up through these pipes, and those pipes end up going through the condensers in the stills there, which is the main area where we need to cool. But the cool thing about this cooling system is that it saves us a massive amount of power, which is effectively, you know, using green energy out there. Because you typically have a big chiller unit, which costs a lot of money to run, about 10 times less, just to have one pump pumping up salt water instead. So it's a very sustainable kind of practice that we were lucky enough to, you know, pretty much have on our doorstep. But come on into the distillery, because this is where it all happens. This is the room of excitement where the fermentation happens, and then of course the distillation. Double distillation, 2 pot stills, Tasmanian made, hand beaten, very expensive, lots of copper, but an essential part of, you know, making single malt whiskey is to double distill it. So firstly, we take that wort we've made next door that you guys just saw, we transport it, we just pump it over in our stainless steel pipe to one of these fermenters and then add the yeast to it. So adding the yeast is then attacking those sugars, it's eating the sugars and creating that byproduct alcohol. That happens over a week.
I'm Rob from Waubs Harbour Distillery. I'm the head distiller here, and we're just going to taste through some new make. So it's running off the still at the moment, so we're getting layers of different types of new make. Basically the alcohols kind of come off at different times and the flavours come off at different times. So at the very beginning it's all fresh and citrusy, and you can probably get that a bit on this sample, but that is coming off pretty hot. Like that would be up there at around still 68% or so. If you've just got that straight from here, yep. And then, but as the whole sample has that little bit more flavour because of those layers have all joined up. But I haven't quite finished this. We're only halfway through. Probably like that looks like about 150 litres. I'm going to get about 250 litres today on this one, and so there's a few more layers of especially the deep, dark, richer flavours and the oils that come across in the distillation technique that we do here in Tassie. So it comes from the barley, it kind of comes across in the product as that malt flavour, but you also get a bunch of the oils, and they squat style stills really enhance that, so you can get a bunch of the oils come across at the end. But the main thing that we're doing here on this one is looking for some of that apple cream.
Yeah, so come on down this way. This is another bond store. We've got a lot of larger barrels in here. We released 100 private casks in the first year when we were operating, and you can see that not many are left because they've mostly matured. In fact, the barrels that are left behind you there are pretty much not private casks. They're from something previous to that. But yeah, we do tastings in this room. And it's got an amazing view, obviously, out to the rocks there with the seals on it. It's just an amazing bit of coastline here, where up and down this coast, it's pretty wild and rough. Today, it doesn't look too bad at all. It looks calm. But, you know, we've got this one natural formation where this island sits off Waubs Harbour here, or the Gulch. A bit of island called Governor's Island, and that creates this one little calm space, which is not very calm many days, let me tell you, but calm enough that we can have a boat ramp and we can go fishing from. But yeah, you get an amazing bit of sea life coming through here. It's not uncommon to see dolphins just cruise on through the Gulch here. You can see seals sitting up on the rock over the back there, just lazing about. There's usually 10 or more seals just having a sunbake out there. If you go diving, and we have to do that sometimes actually, we go diving on the pipelines. The cooling system that I was talking about earlier, we've got a pump house right here and pipelines going out into the ocean. And every now and again, we've got Rob and I go out there and dive on those pipelines, take the filters off the ends and clean them. Which is really fun because often when you're down there doing a bit of work, these giant stingrays coming around, and I always enjoy telling that story because Rob, I think he's formed a bit of phobia over them, even though he was right into his diving himself. But you get these giant stingrays, and there was this time when I was down there and he was sort of wary of these stingrays, but they hadn't turned up yet. And I remember tapping on the shoulder, I sort of tapped him and said, just look behind you. And he looked around, and there is about 3 of these giant stingrays right behind him. They're pretty harmless. I think they were just listening. You know, we're down there sort of scrubbing stuff, and I think it must convert into some stingray mating call, scrubbing pipes, because they come around and they're really interested. Yeah. We're all about like wanting to showcase our product in kind of high quality locations and areas. So we really don't focus. We're a small craft distillery. We've got a limited amount of product or whiskey to sell, and so we're very selective with where we go about showcasing that. So we're not trying to sell volumes into major retailers. In fact, it's the opposite. We're all about getting to know the venues, and the best thing we can do is have someone like the Barrel Collective, for instance, come down from Launceston and a couple of hours away to actually visit our distillery, get to know it, get to know our whiskey and our people, and then actually be able to tell those stories. So it means a lot if the venues can understand our product and understand us as whiskey producers. Then it means a lot because they can relay that on to their customers and be able to tell the great story that we're trying to put together here, this maritime Tasmanian story.